100 years ago, a giant meteor crashed into the continent. The impact of the fall was enormous. Not only that, but the meteor carried eggs that spread everywhere. These eggs turned out to be a horde of insects, which, upon hatching, waged an intense battle against humanity. Humankind could not resist for long and even lost a large portion of its territories to the enemy. A few years later, humans managed to awaken the power to create spiritual contracts, which were different for men and women. Women would awaken their spirit when they reached adulthood, while men would awaken theirs only after forming a contract with the Master of Contracts. In this way, humanity was able to fight back and preserve the small part of the world that still remained under its control. 100 years after the catastrophe occurred at King Tang Academy, one of the students, named Gu Lin, attempts to conjure a weapon with her powers. She successfully summons a rank C sword. However, she is frustrated because she wanted something more powerful. This is the annual awakening ceremony. People do not know what they will awaken until their talent is revealed. Next in line is the student Xiao Mei. She touches the magic stone, and spiritual power manifests, flowing through her body, bringing forth a spear. Her teacher is astonished to see that she has awakened a rank S weapon, an extremely powerful one. Even the other students are surprised, as it is not common for someone to awaken something as powerful as she did. Some of the boys even praise her beauty in addition to her abilities, but one of them comments that she already has a boyfriend. Speaking of which, as soon as Xiaomi approaches, she breaks up with her boyfriend, claiming that now that she has awakened a rank S weapon, they will not get far unless they are in the same class. She also tells him not to look for her anymore. With that, everyone laughs at the boy. He is Han Zhan, the protagonist. In his thoughts, he wonders if this girl really thinks he is still the same pushover as before. In the past, he was extremely obedient to her and did everything she wanted, but his feelings were never truly reciprocated. His girlfriend took advantage of him whenever she could, constantly bossing him around, and as a foolishly infatuated lover, Han Zhan obeyed her blindly. But now he has realized the truth and knows that in the era of spiritual contracts, strength is everything. He no longer wants to be a mere follower. While the others laugh at him for being dumped, Han Zhan calls them nothing more than a bunch of sycophants and asks if they are not worried that he might awaken an S-rank talent or even something superior. His ex-girlfriend scoffs, saying that S-rank spiritual contract talents are extremely rare, and asks if he really thinks he is worthy of such a thing. Right after that, it is his turn. Han Zhan touches the magic stone. However, he feels that it is not responding. Xiao Mei mockingly states that, as expected of someone like him, not only is he not a rank S, but no power has even manifested, making everyone present burst into laughter. But then, an intense light radiates from the protagonist, as the stone finally manifests its power through him. Seeing this overwhelming surge of energy, they are left speechless, only imagining what will emerge. From the stone, an SS rank contract appears for the protagonist, something never seen before. Xiao Mei had no idea such a thing was even possible, as in 100 years, no one had ever awakened with such power. Everyone else is just as shocked, claiming that this must be a mistake because otherwise, the protagonist would become the strongest human alive. On the other hand, the girls are already setting their sights on him, wanting to take advantage of the situation by offering themselves to be his girlfriends. Each one of them uses their charms to try to get his attention. However, the protagonist is not interested and rejects them all, as he has no desire for the attention of such superficial people. What Han Zhan wants now is to know what kind of equipment will emerge from his power. His system alerts him about his attributes. Before he could act, his ex-girlfriend returns like a repentant dog, begging him to disregard what she said earlier. Han Zhan looks at the girl, and with his new system, he can see her attributes and realizes that she is now far inferior to him. While she keeps talking endlessly, he can only focus on the system's information. Then he rejects her and completely ignores her. But the girl does not give up and says this is not over yet. However, as soon as Xiaomi moves away from him, the other girls start laughing at her, as the tables have now turned, until they begin talking about another girl, one they even find pretty, but do not believe in her potential. The others say that with a useless contract, she will not last long at the academy. Her name is Shi Yue, and she hears the girls calling her just a pretty face, quickly feeling upset for not being seen as someone capable. She wonders why they have to treat her this way. Shi Yue's face is soon covered in tears, until, while running, she accidentally bumps into the protagonist. But seeing that she is about to fall to the ground, Han Zhan catches her and asks if she is okay. Deeply embarrassed, she says yes. However, the protagonist analyzes her and realizes that the girl is one of the 10 ancient deities, yet she awakened at rank E, one of the lowest, leaving him wondering why. Then she steps back and apologizes for falling on him. The protagonist says it is fine and gently pats her head, saying that he would like to invite her to join him in an exclusive spiritual contract and become his ally. Immediately, jealousy arises among the other girls as they consider themselves more beautiful and more competent than Essia. even wanting to fight her for the protagonist, until Chen Guangpu, the academy director, appears and interrupts the commotion. He says he admires the protagonist's attitude but states that forming a contract like this cannot be done recklessly, as someone like him is destined for greatness, and his mission is to defend humanity. Shi Yuwei agrees with the director and says her abilities are not worthy of the protagonist. Then Zhao Hu, the guardian of Profound Blue City, appears, saying that Hanzhan has caused quite a stir today. Xiaomi gets excited upon seeing him, as he is her godfather. He asks the protagonist if he used his SS of rank to bully his precious goddaughter. He also says that no one in the city will dare form a contract with the protagonist and tells him not to be ungrateful. Xiaomi agrees, saying that if he apologizes to her godfather, she might forgive him and accept forming a contract, but the protagonist asks if she is even worth it. Immediately, Zhao Hu becomes furious at this provocation and tries to hit him. However, even as the city's guardian, he is stopped. The protagonist does not lift a single finger. The one who intervened for him was the academy director, who tells the guardian not to be impulsive and attack a newly awakened SS rank, warning that he will report this incident. Zhao Hu says he will leave the protagonist alone, but only if he forms a contract with Xie Yue, believing this will be his punishment. Otherwise, he will destroy him. Thus, Hanzhan declares that he will form the contract, and there is no changing his decision. Then he tells Xie Yue that they will make the pact. She apologizes if she has caused him trouble. However, Hanzhan tells her she has nothing to apologize for because he believes she will be of great help. Immediately after, the protagonist uses his powers to seal the contract with her. The girl begins to feel its effects, as she is enveloped by the protagonist's energy, and shortly after, they officially become allies. Then the protagonist checks through the system the benefits he has gained. A soul contract so powerful that, in his opinion, it perfectly synchronizes primary combat, recovery, and major support compositions. Xie Yue also starts noticing the changes. She has jumped from rank E straight to rank SSS due to the contract, and she thanks the protagonist immensely. The people around them witness everything. On the other hand, his ex claims she was humiliated by him and asks Zhao Hu if she will be compensated for it. He responds that forming a contract with someone of rank E is already the protagonist's punishment, as this will make Hanzhan's life in the city much harder. Besides, he has already arranged an evaluation with a master of contracts for Xiaomei. However, Zhao Hu then asks how she will thank him. She replies that they can go to their usual special place, where she will reward him. Immediately, Zhao Hu starts thinking he is in for a great night. A few hours later, he picks up his phone and checks the circulating news. He sees that someone has posted negative news about the protagonist online and feels delighted about it. Not only is he happy, but so is Xiaomei, as she praises her godfather in every way. Zhao Hu thinks that public opinion is just a prelude and that once the evaluation begins, he will show the protagonist what true cruelty is. But for now, he enjoys the pleasures of her company. The next day, in the academy's cafeteria, the protagonist and his assistant are being talked about negatively, as gossip about them is already spreading. Xie Yue feels guilty and apologizes for it, but the protagonist tells her she shouldn't keep apologizing for everything and says that she is the most beautiful girl in the academy, so she should have more confidence in herself. Besides, he says they should eat well for the evaluation, and he tells Xie Yue to ignore those clowns because soon they will see what she is capable of. Then someone approaches the protagonist and says that people are calling Hanzhan a genius, but upon seeing him, he doesn't seem like much. His name is Wang Lumao, Xiaomi's contracted partner, but as he introduces himself, the protagonist starts laughing. Wang Lumao asks what he is laughing at, and Hanzhan replies that he just found something amusing. Xiaomei tells her partner not to lower himself to their level, claiming that the protagonist is just someone who has fallen from grace and will soon be exiled. Then she tells them to hurry to the evaluation. That same day, in the evaluation arena, the representative tells the students that the test will soon begin and states that this is the hardest one yet and only those who pass will be successfully qualified. To go first, he calls Xiaomi and Wang Lumao. Thus, the pair stands up and heads to the arena. Once inside, a door opens before them, and from it, a giant insect emerges. This is the most difficult test, defeating a giant insect. Wang Lumao seems extremely excited to begin. He uses his partner's abilities and borrows her spear to use in the fight, as he intends to defeat the monster with it. But as soon as he lands the first attack, it does not deal much damage to the creature, so he realizes he will have to strike again with more force. This time, he puts more strength into the blow, successfully slicing the insect in half. The audience gets excited upon seeing such a feat. Not only do the people in the arena watch, but the footage is broadcasted to the officials' room. However, Wei King, the leader of the first district, is unimpressed, claiming that this insect is easy compared to others. But his professor corrects him, telling him not to speak nonsense. Lin Jingxuan from the 2nd District says that as an S-rank spirit, Xiao Mei should have been able to kill the insect in a single strike, but she was 20% weaker. He believes that the contracted spirit probably lacks discipline in her lifestyle, which led to spiritual energy leakage. Zhao Hu knows this is his fault but remains silent. Back in the fight, the two are congratulated for their victory, and the announcer even says they have broken the Academy's record. Soon, the audience also praises their performance, not believing that the next contestants can do better. Speaking of which, the announcer is about to call the next participants, and he calls Han Zhan and Sei Yue to the arena. The two stand before the door, until the protagonist notices something different. Not just one, but 10 flying insects appear to face them. Sei Yue says that this was supposed to be a test with one enemy and asks why there are 10. The audience begins to realize that the show will be more interesting than they had expected. The announcer explains that the test is tailored to the participants' level, so someone with an SS of rank must face all these enemies. He says this based on an arrangement with Zhao Hu, who had planned all of this beforehand, and he thinks this is because the protagonist messed with the wrong person. Now Han Zhan and his partner will have more difficulties than they anticipated. Prepared for battle, the protagonist arms himself. He grabs the weapon that awakened with him and uses it against the insects. A sonic wave is emitted like a blast, striking the enemies head-on. The audience is impressed by this. Even the officials question whether this is really possible. One of them mentions that the protagonist took only 30 seconds to eliminate all 10 insects, finding it astonishing. Lin Jingxuan thinks that although Han Zhan is incredibly strong, he does not seem to follow the test rules, and besides, the difficulty was increased significantly. Zhao Hu says that this is a temporary addition to the Blue City Protectors and believes that young people should not waste their talent and set a bad example. But at the same time, he wonders, how is the protagonist so strong? And he thinks that 20 enemies should be enough next time. Wei Xing, on the other hand, seems satisfied with the test results, claiming that the protagonist appears too comfortable, proving his worth. His master agrees but wants to see how far the protagonist's limits go. Then the test begins at level 2 with twice the number of enemies. The protagonist conjures a type of musical spell and once again prepares to use his harp. The insects fly toward him until they start feeling the effect of the spell and fall to the ground already defeated. Thus, the protagonist believes it is enough, unlike the audience, who are once again impressed by his performance. EQ, the person in charge of the 3rd District, sees his rival eyeing the protagonist but quickly claims that he also wants him on his team. At that, a discussion begins between them about who will have the boy on their team. Shen Jiki from the 4th District tries to interrupt the fight, but the two join forces to tell him to shut up, until the professor orders them to stop the commotion. Then he hears the leader of the 2nd District suggest increasing the challenge. Thus, he agrees to proceed, raising the test level. Among all of them, the happiest one is precisely Zhao Hu. Back in the test arena, the announcer declares that the challenge level will increase. Soon, the level 5 test begins, featuring several fierce lizards and thunderbirds. The audience can't believe what they are witnessing, as they have never seen anything like it before. Meanwhile, the protagonist shows no sign of weakness. Seeing this, his opponent calls him arrogant. The lizards charge at full speed, while the birds attack with thunder, but the protagonist remains unfazed. Once again, using his harp, he counterattacks, this time summoning warriors to assist him, who, in large numbers, charge into battle. The warriors face the lizards head-on, but end up being defeated by the birds, who destabilize them with their thunder attacks. Not only that, but the arena walls are also affected. The protagonist notices this and retreats. However, he does not flee from the fight. He only moves away from the thunder. His movements are so impressive that the audience can't believe their own eyes. Regardless, the protagonist repositions himself in another area, and once again with his harp, he prepares to attack. He uses sound against the monsters once more, and breaks their formation. Seeing that the protagonist is not only very young, but has also defeated high-caliber monsters, the audience is shocked by his performance. Even his opponents are impressed by his talent. Thus, the announcer declares Han Zhan the winner of level 3. In the high-ranking officials' room, they are also impressed, as they witness his ability to use music in battle. Not only that, but the most astonishing fact is that he achieved this despite having formed a contract with someone of rank E. Soon, the professor calls for Afu. The man presents himself to his master and asks for his orders. He says that Afu has the ability to identify the rank of contractors and asks him to analyze Xie Yue. He attempts to analyze but fails, stating that it might be a situation similar to that of Miss Ling Zhen. She was identified as rank E by the Awakening Stone, but his talent does not reach the same conclusion. However, she is so powerful because she signed a contract with Han Zhan. The professor finds this bizarre, and if true, it would be necessary to ensure that Ling Zhen and Han Zhan meet. By the way, he asks for the name of Ling Zhen's talent. Afu replies that it is Shenong's cauldron. Back to the protagonist, he says he wishes to continue the test. The official is surprised but agrees to proceed. Soon, the level 4 test begins. New monsters appear to face him, and once again, the protagonist defeats them all. With his power, he slices them apart, and says he wants to feel challenged as he seeks to test his limits. The challenge level keeps increasing, and at each stage, he proves superior to his enemies, leaving only the corpses of monsters in the arena, until the official states that he has already reached level 9, adding that he can stop if he wants. But the protagonist opposes this, declaring that he wishes to go up to level 10. The official calls him crazy, claiming that no one has ever succeeded at this level before. Even the people in the audience know this and want to see if the protagonist is truly capable of surpassing the highest level. The leader of the first district says that, in his time, this evaluation system was challenged up to difficulty level 9, but that was already a new record in 100 years. The head of the second district says that this boy has great talent and wants him on his team, so discussion begins between them about who will get the protagonist. Then the leader of the first district suggests a competition, which the leader of the second district accepts. Back in the arena, the person in charge of the challenges says that if the protagonist insists on the challenge, he cannot stop him, but he must warn him that this level is impossible and that if he wins, Han-Jan says that he is aware of this and only needs some time to recover before starting. The official states that the evaluation has a rule not allowing more than 5 minutes of rest, but the protagonist says he just wants some time for a sound. And through his sonic abilities, he recovers, once again impressing those watching. Meanwhile, the district leaders continue competing for him, until Liu Jingshun, the leader of the 5th district, appears, questioning whether it is really appropriate to send such a versatile spiritual contractor who can absorb spiritual energy and heal injuries to the front lines. Soon, the others ask if he also wants to join the competition, but Liu Jingshun simply says to leave the protagonist with him, as he will be more useful in his team. However, it is of no use as the others also want the protagonist, and they are willing to fight each other for him, if not for the interference of his master. He says that the 8 great districts of Daixia each have their own responsibilities and have made great contributions. The first district excels in decisive battles, the second district specializes in strategy, the third district expands territories, the fourth district explores and seeks the truth, the fifth district saves lives, the sixth district guards key passages, the 7th district traverses the oceans, and the 8th district remains behind the scenes. These 8 great districts are the pillars of Daixia. They hold up the sky for the people below. The old man once considered creating a 9th district, but never took the initiative. Wei Ting asks if he is really going to build a new district, but for Lin Jingxuan, there is no need to ask that, because when looking at the protagonist, the answer is obvious. The challenge that strikes fear into everyone appears, revealing itself to be a high-level flaming beast. The announcer says that the protagonist will have to survive the attacks of this monster for 3 minutes to pass the test. The creature is so fierce that its movements affect even those in the audience. However, they see that the protagonist in turn has not moved and is not intimidated by standing before such a dangerous demonic beast. Han-Jan asks Xie Yue if she is ready. The girl responds that she is, stating that no matter what he decides, she will provide the necessary support. Then the protagonist advances, saying that as a master of spiritual contracts, he is not there just to survive, but to defeat the creature that has never been conquered before. He dodges the monster's fire attacks, which are extremely destructive and dangerous. However, the protagonist has the aid of his magic harp, and through it, he manages to invoke chanting magic. This power is magnificent, according to those who observe him, leaving the audience deeply affected. But Han Jinan is focused on his mission. He wants to kill this monster. Soon he uses the wind, hoping to counterattack the enemy's fire. Thus, the enemy loses its balance, being carried away by the force of the wind. For, like a hurricane, the wind affects it, disintegrating the monster completely. The audience had already witnessed the protagonist's strength before, but this time, he defeated a challenge said to be impossible, and they cannot believe their own eyes. Even his rivals are shocked to see this. For his part, Han-Jan says that forcibly executing a high-level zither composition still causes a severe reaction. Basically, that was what he did. Then one of the leaders approaches and congratulates him for passing all the tests and breaking the score record. The protagonist asks who he is. He introduces himself as Lin Jingxuan, the leader of the 2nd district, and is there to ask a few questions, such as who he thinks will win in the end. Han-Jan says that the enemies are stronger, but he does not believe that humanity will perish. Lin likes the answer and asks what motivation Han-Jan has to fight. He responds that he fights to prevent the enemies from wiping out the rest of humanity and hopes that humans will be able to live in peace and prosper. Furthermore, he wishes to restore the glory of Daixia. The master of the leaders, Li Shutong, appears and praises the protagonist, asking if he would like to become one of his disciples. Han-Jan recognizes him, knowing that Li Shutong is the most powerful figure in the Daixia family. 100 years ago, the three main Zerg emperors joined forces to overthrow Daxia, bringing it to the brink of destruction. At the critical moment, Lei Shutong fought alone against the three Zerg emperors, killing them and saving Daxia. Knowing this story, the protagonist feels excited to learn that the master wants him as a disciple, so he accepts the offer to become his apprentice. The master says that the protagonist suits him much better than his other disciples. He also says that, since they are just getting to know each other, he will give him a gift. He presents a ring made from the bones of the defeated emperor, which contains a part of history. The protagonist notices that this item holds a terrifying and fierce aura, assuming it is due to the nature of the dead emperor's bones. The master explains that this ring can repel low-level Zergs, but when facing more powerful ones, they may feel an even stronger urge to attack. And if the protagonist is concerned, he should not wear it regularly. Hands-on replies, "This is a gift from my master. Of course, I have to wear it." Seeing this, the master says that the protagonist is not like some of the weak ones who do not even dare to take the ring, even when it is offered to them. Then he says that's enough talk and tells the protagonist and his companion to rest, as later he will take them to lunch to get to know them better. Later that day, they meet at a restaurant. The master says he has asked his other disciples to come as well because he wants them all to meet. Lin Jingxuan formally introduces himself. Soon after, the heads of the other districts are also introduced. The protagonist and his companions say it is a pleasure to meet them. One of the leaders says they are like family now and don't need to be so formal, adding that only one of them is not present because he is busy with something. However, shortly after, that leader appears, introducing himself as the head of the 6th district. He hands his number to the protagonist, saying he can call in case of emergencies. But just as suddenly as he appeared, he vanishes like smoke. The protagonist is a bit confused, and says that this leader has a unique personality. Then Lin Jingxuan gives Han Zhan a gift, saying that the box contains martial arts techniques, battle materials, and other useful things. Han Zhan thanks him for the gift, until, out of nowhere, a woman appears shouting, asking if Xie Yue is not afraid of secretly eating food different from hers. Xie Yue recognizes her as her aunt. The woman is furious at the girl for this, claiming that she used to eat at her house, but now that she has made a fortune, she is enjoying herself at her expense. She even tries to assault her niece, but before she can, she is stopped. The protagonist prevents her from getting close to his friend. The woman asks if he is the boy who took her niece away from her. He says yes. The aunt says she raised Xie Yue for a long time and now wants to be rewarded. However, the girl becomes irritated with her, telling her aunt to stop talking nonsense. Nonetheless, the woman says that Xie Yue has no right to speak to her that way, claiming that as soon as she grew wings, her niece started rebelling. Then she threatens the girl, saying that her boyfriend is from the 4th district, and because of that, she will make it impossible for Xie Yue to live peacefully as a contracted spirit. The leader of the 4th district hears the woman say this and is startled, but the woman does not recognize him and asks who he is to doubt her words. Not only that, but she also confronts the master of the leaders. She claims she will demand what is rightfully hers, and that if the old man wants to keep her niece, he must pay for her house, her car, and everything in her name. She also says she has relatives in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th war zones, and that if he does not dare to give her what she is asking for, she will make him suffer. The master speaks directly to his disciples, stating that the disrespect of this woman cannot go unpunished. Immediately, each of the leaders calls their districts and takes the necessary measures. The woman refuses to back down. She claims she also has connections with influential people. However, shortly after, her phone rings. She answers, and on the other end, her grandfather gives her a harsh scolding, saying that her actions are tarnishing the family's name. The master merely observes her at that moment. Meanwhile, her grandfather continues reprimanding her, telling her to behave, or else she will be a dead person soon. In shock, she drops her phone to the ground and asks who this man standing before her is. After that, the restaurant staff tries to make her leave, but the woman continues to cause a scene. Like a child, she throws a tantrum, saying she does not deserve to be treated this way, until the master grows tired of the noise she is making, and, using his abilities, silences the woman. Xie Yue feels extremely embarrassed and apologizes on behalf of her family, but her master does not blame her for this, stating that now he and the other disciples are her family as well. Furthermore, he says that she will no longer need to return to her aunt's house, as from now on, she will be taken in by them. Xie Yue thanks him for his kindness, and the master simply tells them to enjoy the food. He also explains that there are rules to follow when eating the 9-grade dinner. The middle grade is for hot pot dishes, which should be consumed right after cooking. The 4 large grayish square grades at the corners are for stews, which are suitable for long cooking. After that, he tells the protagonist that everyone has their own path, and no one is certain of their future, not even himself. The protagonist reflects on these words. Meanwhile, the master notices something different, and realizes that the food is no longer in front of him. Han Zhan notices it too, and sees that while they were talking, Seiyue had prepared his meal as a gesture of gratitude. Lin Jingxuan, seeing this, asks if they are dating. This embarrasses them, but he claims that after intimate acts, a spiritual master can evolve, and even gain a certain degree of replicative abilities. These are not very powerful, but are highly useful. There are two types of spiritual forms, materialized and humanized. Their spiritual companions are in their humanoid forms, thus fulfilling their roles. Han Zhan says that masters and spirits can fight together or separately, but Seiyue adds that this is only if they have engaged in intimate acts first. Lin Jingxuan asks if Seiyue is really just rank E. Han Zhan says that she was, in fact, level E at the beginning, but she has the ability to revive her divinity. After that, she ascended to rank SSS with him. The leaders are surprised to hear this. Han Zhan explains that others believe he chooses his spirit randomly, but he would never contract an ordinary spirit. Because of his talent, if he encountered a spirit with divinity, he would not pass it up, even if it were low level. Besides the Fuxi Zither, there are 9 other ancient divine weapons. Then the master says that no one should know about this talent except them, and he tells Jingxuan that when he returns, he should classify Han Zhan and Seiyue as the highest level secret and prevent anyone from accessing it. After that, one of the leaders says that he and his team have managed to win 19 consecutive battles and, in addition, have reclaimed about 20% of enemy territory. The master praises this work and appreciates receiving good news for a change. Then he suggests a toast to that and to the new students. Late at night, they leave the gathering, and the protagonist notices that the master has had too much to drink. However, the master tells him not to worry about it, as he must now get to know his new home. Upon entering, Han Zhan says he did not expect the master to have a house in Shenlin City. He explains that this is his wife's hometown. This also surprises the protagonist, as he did not know the master was married. Lai Shutong says that it has been a long time, and reveals that his wife died in battle. He also says that everyone knows he killed the 3 Zerg emperors, but no one remembers his wife. Faced with this delicate situation, the protagonist apologizes for bringing up the subject. The master simply tells him to be kind to his companion, as they are not just contracted spirits, nor mere tools for fighting. They are also human beings. Han Zhan asks the master to say his wife's name, stating that as long as there is someone who remembers her, she will not be forgotten by the entire world. Lai Shutong says that the protagonist is truly remarkable, and reveals that his wife's name was Ling Mai. In that historic battle, he killed 1 Zerg emperor, and she fought to the death against the other 2. If she were still alive, she would be more qualified than him to have the honor of saving the Xie Empire. After their conversation, the master takes them to their rooms, and outside, he rests alone under the starlight, remembering his wife and the good memories they'd built together, until his new students appear, saying that they do not want to leave their master alone enjoying the starlight. The master thanks them and says that seeing the 2 of them reminds him of when he and his wife were younger, and he tells them that if they want to protect the person they love, they must be strong enough, so he will teach them martial arts techniques. Then the master channels his energy, preparing to teach the 2 of them. He then introduces the technique called Baki Quan, explaining that it has 8 locks in total, corresponding to 8 strategic points in the human body. Once all 8 locks are unlocked, one surpasses their limits. The protagonist follows the master's instructions, surprising him because he learned faster than the master expected, as it would normally take about 6 months to reach that level. Han Zhan simply says that he is feeling the energy of the place and channeling it. The master attacks, saying that now he will teach him the fighting technique using the 8 locks. Han Zhan is caught off guard and falls after being hit. Lai Shutong says that he will make him realize that being too much of a genius is not always good, and that he should be a bit more reserved. For the master, it is very satisfying to teach a lesson to a talented disciple. But for Han Zhan, it would be better to have a kinder master. The next day at ID Academy, Seiyue asks if the protagonist is still in pain. He says no, and that he already feels better, until they come across some attention seekers who provoke them precisely because of their performance on test day. But the protagonist simply ignores them and tells his friend to do the same. After that, they go to the director's office, who tells them he has bad news. According to the higher-ups, they will be assigned to the Deep Blue City Guardians starting today. Starting from the bottom to perform frontline duties, they must report to the organization as soon as possible. The director acknowledges that this decision is a bit excessive given their talents, but it is an order from above, and he has already tried to argue against it. But the protagonist says that this is a good decision and thinks that it is exactly as his master said. The provocative students return and once again begin mocking the 2 of them. However, this time the protagonist does not ignore them. He confronts these troublemakers head-on, until their leader challenges him to a fight. Then the protagonist says he will make him pay for all this humiliation. So the 2 clash, but Han Zhan comes out on top. as the troublemaker's arm snaps in half upon being hit. The protagonist is not satisfied with that. He, completely unhinged, lands a solid punch on the troublemaker's face, forcing him to swallow his insults. As soon as it ends, the protagonist leaves with his friend, leaving the defeated opponent on the ground. Seeing this, the director calls for someone from the infirmary to attend to the fallen student. Outside, Han-jan and his friend head to the Guardian's headquarters to register. The receptionist treats them with disdain, but as soon as he sees who they are, he quickly changes his attitude, claiming that he had been expecting them. Then he pulls up the files and says that the two will be in the same squad. Within the Guardian's organization, each person has a primary team, which is responsible for supervising the other Guardians. The others are numbered according to their districts and belong to different teams. After this explanation, the receptionist points them to the room they should go to. However, as soon as they arrive, the room is completely messy, so they wonder what happened there. Inside, a woman asks who they are and what they are doing there. The protagonist says that he has been appointed the new captain of Team 527, until a man lying down hears this and says that he hasn't even fully grown his hair out yet, and he already wants to be the new captain. Shayui does not like this behavior and asks why this man is acting that way. Even the protagonist wonders if all squad members are like this. Then the man stands up and tries to tease Shayui, saying that her voice is too serene for someone who is angry. However, the protagonist does not like the way he is behaving near his friend and immediately punches him, sending the man to the ground with a bloody nose. Hong Yingwei tells him to keep talking to the leader because she is leaving. Yifan asks her to leave some money with him to buy drinks. However, she walks away, saying she has no money. After that, Yifan says that this team is so depressing that they don't even have money to buy alcohol and asks if the protagonist really intends to stay. Han-jan says that as long as he stays there, any problem will be temporary, but Fan says he is just overestimating himself. He also says that they were ranked last among the Guardian teams of Deep Blue City in terms of points. Soon, in 2 months, it will be the end of the year, and the organization will hold a dismissal meeting for the teams. The detainees will be sent to the lower district. Judging by their team's current points, dismissal is inevitable. The lower district is chaotic, dirty, and degraded, with extremely harsh living conditions. Then he says that if the protagonist does not want to die in the lower district, he should leave quickly. The protagonist realizes that Janhu is trying to send him to a dangerous district to get rid of him, but says that he will not succeed. Shayui says that insisting on this squad is a waste of time, but the protagonist says that running away from problems only gets a person used to cowardice. Only by overcoming them is it possible to become stronger. Besides, even if they joined another team, Zhao Hu would not lead them alone. Instead, he thinks it is better to stay and change the team, turning it into the #1 team in Deep Blue City. And with that, put an end to Zhao Hu's plans. After that, Han Zheng goes to Hong Yingwei, but she is not at all willing to talk to him. The protagonist asks how long she will sit there, doing nothing, waiting for death, and asks if he should call her Hong Yingwei or Bai Xuan. Immediately, she asks who exactly the protagonist is and how he knows that. Han Xian formally introduces himself and says that this is just a small transformation of his abilities. The girl, however, says that if he intended to use this to threaten her, he better give up now, but the protagonist only invites her to carry out tasks, claiming that she does not really want to give up and that if she cooperates with him, he promises it will be worth it. She agrees, thinking that this man can see through her lies, which is really a bit unusual, and trying to work with him once will not hurt. Thus, the protagonist says that she will be responsible for gathering the tasks, and he will do the selection. Hong Yingwei says that there are 3 suitable tasks for their group at the moment and asks him to take a look. The protagonist says that these tasks are a bit difficult, with few points, and wonders how long it would take to surpass the others. Then he states that if they are going to do this, he wants to take on the task with the highest points. But Hong Yingwei does not agree. She says that this is not advisable, and besides, they would need to have 6 to 8 people in the group for that. Han Zhan knows this, but says that only these tasks can help them get the necessary points. Hong Yingwei calls him crazy, stating that if they fail, they will still receive a 10% penalty on their already few points. But the protagonist says that he will take full responsibility for any problems. She agrees to go along with it, but thinks that, in the end, she will be the one responsible for carrying their bodies when they lose. Far away, another group is handling the cleanup of a battlefield, but they cannot handle it alone, having to rely on the collaboration of another group. However, their leader tells some to guard the entrance to the sewers and check if anyone is trying to handle it alone. A little later, the protagonist arrives with his group, and Hong Yingwei warns him about the possible dangers of this area. However, the protagonist, along with his friend, runs ahead, telling Hong Yingwei to wait there as they will be back soon. Hong Yingwei does not understand why he did that, claiming that completing this task would already be difficult with a large group, let alone with just 2. Then she decides that she will not let it go like that, and runs after them, going against the leader, because she believes that if she does not, something bad will happen. Han Yingwei reaches them with a slight delay. When she approaches, the protagonist says that everything is already taken care of. She sees the bodies of Zergs on the ground and cannot believe that the protagonist was the one who took them all down. Han Jian simply says that the mission is complete and that now they only need to collect the valuable materials from the Zerg's bodies. He also says that the dead guy on the ground must be a missing guardian and tells Han Yingwei she can take him away. While she wonders how the protagonist did this, the other group approaches. They arrive at the same place sometime later and find the bodies of the enemies already stripped. Besides realizing that all have already been defeated, they see that the treasure has also been collected, but they do not know who did it. In Zhao Hu's room, he receives some information that the protagonist group has already completed 2 missions and has 350 points. Upon hearing this, he becomes furious and takes it out on his assistant. Then he says that the protagonist is no longer a hindrance just because he found a sponsor. Soon, he orders his assistant to go and inform the other squads to take on all the missions in Blue City, leaving none behind. Back home, the protagonist's master says he heard about his problems with Zhao Hu and asks if he needs help. Hands-on thanks him but says no. Zhao Hu says he is more concerned with other problems within the Guardians, an organization that took on the name of the city's protectors but has done nothing to protect it. The master says that when an organization grows and develops, it will inevitably encounter various problems, and over the years, they have been so busy that their internal powers have slowly rotted away. They are decayed, and there is absolutely no cure, so they need a fire to reignite them. That is why Zhao Hu was chosen. A fire can burn dead leaves and dispel darkness, but it can also be extinguished at any moment. Zhao Hu says that lately he has not been able to advance to the next level of the 8 Deadly Fists technique and asks what he should do to progress. The master says that if he wants to break through the 8 deadly points, he must remember these 4 words, between life and death. After a good meal, the protagonist thinks he will finally have a well-deserved moment of rest, until Xie appears, asking if she can sleep in his room that night. He says the house is quite large and asks why Xie wants to sleep there specifically. Xie responds that the master locked all the other room doors. Hanjian feels awkward but agrees, saying he will sleep on the floor while she can have the bed. However, she insists that the protagonist take the bed, but he asks if that is a good idea. After much insistence, the two end up sleeping together in the same bed. The next day, Hanjian gets up, saying that just like the previous day, he wants to find good missions to complete. But as soon as he enters his group's meeting room, he comes face to face with Han Yingwei and Yi Fan. They discovered who the protagonist is and went straight to his house. Han Yingwei says that last time, she did not know he was so powerful and thought he had used connections to join the group, so she apologizes to him. She also says that now that the authorities have sent a genius to protect the city, it does not matter what happened before because she believes he will be useful sooner or later. Yi Fan says that the protagonist is aggressive and even offended Zhao Hu, which makes their lives more difficult, potentially leading to demotions or worse. Han Yingwei says that for some reason, all available missions in the city have already been taken, leaving nothing for them. Then the protagonist asks if there are any missions in other cities. Han Yingwei had not thought of that. Soon, Hanjian checks the mission board for Kanghai City and realizes that there is something there. However, he does not understand the information. Han Yingwei explains that although they can take on missions in other cities, it also means they will have to travel to complete them. However, the roads connecting the cities are infested with highly dangerous monsters. Sometime later, they are speeding down the roads in a 4x4, and it does not take long for the insects to appear and attempt to attack them. Hanjian says that these creatures usually move in swarms because in large groups, they increase their destructive power. Yi Fan, who had been sleeping until then, wakes up startled by the insects. They start grouping together until they begin flying in the same direction, creating a tornado which astonishes the group. Due to being intoxicated, Yi Fan is the only one who remains calm. Han Yingwei, who is driving, asks the captain what they should do. The protagonist says that their target is not them but a caravan nearby. With that, Han Yingwei asks if they should help. Hanjian says yes and tells her to go full speed toward them. This in a way excites Yi Fan. Then Han Yingwei turns the car straight toward the tornado at full speed, causing her teammate to hit his head. He feels the pain but pretends to be fine. On the other side, the caravan under attack is getting the worst of it. A girl named Shang Si-ting is being protected, and the person in charge says that they cannot slow down now or they will be hit. He also says that saving the reinforcements is practically impossible since their main goal is to protect the girl. Right after that, through the radio, he orders the execution of the plan and the sacrifice. The girl even tries to stop it, but they claim that protecting her is the priority. Then, at the leader's command, they attack the enemies with heavy weapons. However, their attacks only serve to delay them, as they are ineffective against these insects. Shang Si-ting feels frustrated for not being able to save them, but her guardian tries to comfort her, claiming that it is an honor to die in her service and protection, and that she should not blame herself, until suddenly they begin to hear a strange sound. Once again, the tornado is attacked, but this time by the protagonist. With his magic harp, he attacks the enemies from a distance. Thus, the hurricane is slowly dissipated. From inside the car, Shang Si-ting can see this, until her car and the protagonist get very close. Han Jan does not stop using his powers, as the situation is still not safe. Shang Si-ting is impressed to see someone dispersing this storm, as she did not know that anyone was capable of it. After that, each goes in opposite directions, but the insect hurricane has not yet been completely defeated, until the moment comes when they decide to fight back. Yifan warns his group to be careful, but in the middle of it all, he is hit. After falling into the back of the truck, he still manages to joke around, but the protagonist says he needs a healing potion and that if he does not remove the stakes that hit him, he will soon die. So Han Jan tries to do it as quickly as possible, and removes the sharp objects one by one. After that, he asks how his companion is doing. Then he decides to analyze him and discovers that Yifan has an impressive healing factor, making him practically immortal. Yifan gets up and says that this is part of his talents and that he forgot to mention it before. But the protagonist does not pay much attention to this, as there are still problems to solve. A little later, they continue the mission. Shayui says that they have apparently arrived at the task location. Yifan decides to take a look, spotting a swarm of insects ahead. They are in great numbers, but the heroes do not intend to retreat now. With Seiyui's help, the protagonist prepares, saying that now he can truly start earning points. Soon he decides to use his magic harp again. This way he manages to hit some insects and takes down a good number of them. This impresses Yifan, as he and Hong Yinwei are left speechless witnessing the protagonist's power. A large screen shows that the tasks have been completed, and an audience of other warriors watches. They wonder which team has managed to complete so many tasks in such a short time, until one of them says it was Team 527 from Deep Blue City. The leader of a rival group becomes enraged, as he does not like the idea of a team from another city coming to Shanghai to complete their missions. Soon he feels determined to find this team and show them who is in charge. Thus, the leader and some of his team members head into the city in search of the protagonist's group. His men are excited about having such a fun task, as they want to demonstrate their power to the visitors. However, their leader warns them about something. A giant serpent is already dead. Upon seeing this, he says that the leader of this invading group has gone too far. So he orders his driver to turn around because he wants to find this group and confront them. The driver then prepares to depart, but one of the team members stops him and tries to warn his captain not to underestimate this foreign team, claiming that a black pickup truck was spotted leaving the city. The captain gets furious and punches him in the nose. Far away, at the Guardian Organization's headquarters, the third in command, Su Mingswen, asks why the task completion rate in Shanghai City, Deep Blue City, and the surrounding areas has increased so much. His assistant says that a team from Deep Blue City has recently specialized in completing tasks in other cities, so his boss asks to see the records of this team, as he is eager to see who they are. After a while, he sips his coffee, and his assistant returns with the data. Su Mingswen dismisses his assistant as he wants to be alone. As soon as he picks up the records and looks at them, he realizes they are at the top of the classified documents and wonders if this is even possible. He did not think it was possible, until he comes across the protagonist's file and sees that his information is even more classified than that of the other members of his group. After that, his phone rings. The person on the other end introduces himself as Lin Jingxuan, and Su Mingswen wonders why he is receiving a call from the second in command of the war zone. Lin Jingxuan simply tells him to stop investigating those files, warning him that this is above his clearance level. He hangs up and wonders what is so secret about these people that someone from the high command does not want him to know. Speaking of the protagonist, he is about to fight a very strong creature. A creature attacks the protagonist, but he quickly dodges the strike, and right after that, he manages to counterattack. Afterward, he says that the mission is complete and asks Hong Yinwei to check the points earned. She analyzes the data, and meanwhile, Yifan says that with all the missions they have completed, they should soon be the #1 group. Hong Yinwei says that they have 1,800 points, but they are still in last place in the ranking. Shayui does not understand this and asks if there is anyone capable of completing tasks faster than them. It does not take long for Hong Yinwei to blame Zhao Hu, saying that he is causing problems for them again. Han Zhan says that the second to last team has 2,300 points. However, the 12 teams that were originally at the bottom of the list are now tied. Hong Yinwei says that more than a dozen teams are tied, and that not everyone can have SSS level talents to complete Zerd dungeons endlessly. The protagonist says that everyone agrees to tie their scores, and when they complete a task, the points are distributed to the same person. These points are earned through joint efforts, so they do not violate any rules of the City Guardians organization. But the protagonist tells his group not to stress about it because they are doing fine, and he still believes they have a chance to surpass the others. Sometime later, Hanjan and Seiyue arrive home. The master asks how the trip went. The protagonist says they earned a lot of points, but the result was not great. However, they managed to save a convoy on the road. With that, the master asks if the little girl at the merchant's shop was rescued by the protagonist, and if the guy she called not romantic was him. He is not surprised that the girl had been bothering him a few days ago, asking how to awaken and become a powerful spirit. Her grandfather and the master are old friends, and the Shang family is also behind one of the 5 leading technology companies. They mainly develop weapons. These weapons are state-of-the-art for spiritual masters, and also for ordinary people who do not have spiritual contracts. The master says that Shang Xiting is like a granddaughter to him. The merchant brought her there on purpose to force her to return, but she was interrupted by the protagonist. Han Zhan says that her identity is not simple, and he did not want to cause trouble. The master responds that it is fine. The convoy was escorting something meant for him, and it is something he intended to give to the protagonist anyway. Seiyue asks what it is. The master says they are innovative potions. Hanjan says that this potion increases strength, speed, reflexes, defense, and even talent, but he is unsure if it is true or not. The master asks why they are still standing around and tells each of them to grab one and swallow it quickly. They thank him and drink the potion. Soon after, the protagonist begins to feel its effects. Not only him, but also his friend. The 4 celestial elements appear. Hanzan asks, after Xeyui's awakening, has a new divinity appeared? The will of the heavens is actually a celestial phenomenon. There are 4 phenomena in the sky: wind, fire, thunder, and lightning. Through this potion, both the protagonist and his friend's powers have been amplified. After the intense effect wears off, Hanjan says that the innovative potion is so powerful that not only did he level up, but he also gained more musical abilities for his friend's new divinity. Even Seiyue says she feels much stronger. The master finds this splendid and tells them not to disappoint him with their new performances. Then the protagonist's phone rings. On the other end, Hong Yingwei says that a new city task list has appeared and that new missions are available. He sees that it involves 3 Zerg Rangers. A single ranger is equivalent to 3 third-level spiritual masters, so he wonders if he should accept this mission. Then he tells his group to meet him on 6th Street to discuss it and informs the master that he and his friend are heading out. The master says that today is a busy day. Then his butler appears, saying that Nis Lingjun has been found in Kanghai City, but she refuses to return to see him. Back to the protagonist, he and his friend meet up with the rest of the team. Without wasting time, Hong Yingwei asks if they will accept the mission or not. Their captain says yes, as this is a great opportunity to earn more points. However, she warns that the Rangers, even when young, are too dangerous to be defeated. The protagonist asks if she knows what a red alert means. He then explains that it means if they do not eliminate that Ranger now, once it fully matures, it will destroy the city. And as a team of Guardians, their original intention is not to fight for points but to fight to protect humanity. The leader of the previous group says that this is the gift of the Wanderer, the Black Veil, which can isolate all perception, distinguish itself from the outside world, and create its own domain. Anything enveloped by it, regardless of whether it shows signs of life, will undergo accelerated aging and decay, ultimately leading to destruction. One of his teammates says that the higher-ups sent them to deal with the Wanderer and asks why they are still issuing missions externally. The captain says that the Wanderer is incredibly powerful and requires a large number of decoys to draw fire. He also says that they will not act yet because they want to wait until the first wave of cannon fodder goes in. From a distance, he sees the protagonist and his group. Hanjan tells his team to be careful, as this is the Black Veil cast by the Wanderer. Hong Yingwei asks if he is prepared for this because, once inside, there is no way to return. Yifan, on the other hand, says that this thing has no effect on him, so he does not care. The protagonist does not either and says that everyone will be fine. From afar, they see the place where they must enter. Inside, everything is abandoned and has a very eerie atmosphere. Hanjan says that the presence of insects inside is strong, and warns everyone to stay alert. Seiyue says she feels like she is being watched at all times, as if a pair of eyes is following her constantly. Of all of them, she is the most fearful. Soon she claims to have heard a strange sound and asks if the protagonist heard it too. Hong Yingwei says it feels like there is a force draining their lives. The Black Veil has a life deprivation ability. While they are inside, everyone's energy will be gradually drained until death. Yifan says they have about half an hour. If they do not break the veil within that time, They will all become nourishment for the Wanderer's growth. Seeing a black sphere ahead, Hong Yingwei asks if that is what he is talking about. Her teammate says yes. The protagonist asks if they just need to break it. But as he approaches the object, his foot is sucked into the ground, which seemed solid before but has now turned into something like quicksand. Hong Yingwei is swallowed, but Yi Fan tries to pull her out. Han Zhan also steps in to help. He says that this is the second gift the Wanderer grants to any object, life endowment. Life can be taken away, but it can also be granted. The things given life are not limited to humans, but can also include weapons, tools, and even the ground itself. She Yui says that if that is the case, they should act together. The protagonist agrees with this, and immediately grabs his magic harp. With it he launches several attacks, and blows up a nearby wall, causing it to crack. However, soon after, the wall regenerates, making the protagonist realize that the force within this place is greater than he expected. Not only that, but the entire area around him begins to move. He realizes this is an attempt to ambush them, until a light appears above him. It was a sign that an insect was approaching. He was almost hit, but his harp spirit warned him. So Han Zhan managed to dodge just in time. The insect took the opportunity to escape between the walls. Han Zhan asks if what he saw is real, but his harp simply tells him to run, because more insects are approaching. The leader of the group opposing the protagonist says that apparently there will be no more fresh cannon fodder, telling his people to stay alert. One of them tells the captain not to worry, as they are all third-level spirit contract masters. And with third-level spirit contract masters, they will definitely complete the mission. Even if things get out of control, they will still be able to retreat safely. But as soon as that was said, things started to go wrong. Something strange begins to happen. Amidst a thick smoke, they become separated from each other, until a team member starts looking for his captain. And when he finds him, he realizes that the captain is paralyzed. The captain sees the team member and his group, and suddenly starts attacking him, leaving the young man confused. However, he was not fully conscious, as an insect was controlling him. That same insect immediately jumped onto the young man as soon as he got close. Back at the protagonist's core group, Yi Fan says that this wanderer is trying to take them down one by one and finds it quite interesting. Hong Yingwei asks if he cannot feel these invisible threads. He replies that he can break them, but they do not affect him at all. The girl says she envies him for having such a gift, but Yi Fan asks if never having to worry about his life and being unable to die is actually a kind of punishment. Regardless, Yi Fan says that since they cannot leave now, they might as well give up completely. But this idea does not sit well with Hong Yingwei at all. She says he is nothing more than lifeless dust. Then, Hong Yingwei touches a wall and creates a crack. Seeing the wall start to crumble, her partner panics. However, on the other side, a silhouette appears. Hong Yingwei identifies it as her captain and warns him to be careful. The protagonist hears the warning and quickly dodges, barely escaping being crushed. Right after, he reunites with the rest of the group. However, as they are talking, a giant hand attacks them. This time, it is the protagonist who warns Hong Yingwei to be careful. She, along with her partner, is caught off guard and has no time to react. But Han Zhan acts quickly, saving them. He tells them to stay out of the way, as he realizes that the hand that attacked them belongs to a giant monster. With his magic harp, he prepares to attack, and waits for the creature to come a little closer. Then he launches his attack at it. The two team members step back, and realize that the protagonist is facing a powerful foe. Han Zhan says that these monsters were all summoned by the Wanderer, and that they need to destroy its body as quickly as possible. He also explains that after releasing the black veil, its body fused with the entire dark world. Now all that remains is this black sphere, and if they break the sphere, they will be able to kill the Wanderer. Hong Yingwei tells the protagonist to go ahead. Meanwhile, they will hold off the creature. Yi Fan takes the lead. With his powers, he unleashes a massive explosion, and as he gets closer to the enemy, he says that his immortality shield can only withstand 6 hits. So he urges the captain to run and find a solution. Thus, the protagonist pushes forward and tells him to hold on. Han Zhan also uses his powers, and through them, he concentrates a massive amount of lightning in an attempt to strike his target. With power comparable to that of mythical creatures, the protagonist hits the creature that was about to strike Yi Fan, and lands a direct blow with a powerful lightning strike. Yi Fan is somewhat startled by the impact, but not only was the creature hit, the sphere was as well. With that, it shatters into several pieces. This makes Yi Fan feel relieved, as he believes that with this, they have secured their victory. But right after, the protagonist is struck and tells his companion to run. Han Zhan is caught off guard by an enemy, who calls all humans insignificant and claims that none of them will escape. Yi Fan realizes that this enemy is an adult wanderer. After that, Hong Yingwei's demeanor changes, and she says that this wanderer is a surprise she had prepared for them. She says that she masked her true intentions with lies and kept it by her side, waiting for the right moment to release it and deliver the final blow. The protagonist asks why she is doing this. Han Yingwei simply answers the question, claiming that she has wanted to kill him all along. Han Zhan says that this is the second time, and it will definitely not be a mistake this time. He states that he has seen this before and declares that she has been parasitized. The silver-white shadow of the insect he just saw in her pupils is the infamous worn erosion. The erosion worm is a 4th-level insect species. With a terrifying ability called cerebral erosion, any creature whose brain is invaded by the worm will be completely controlled. Not only that, but it has the ability to reproduce asexually and divide itself. In the history of the Blue Stars, a 7th-level fighter had his brain invaded. He massacred an entire city that he once protected, leaving behind nothing but carnage and corpses. It took an enormous effort and countless resources to stop him, for the organization to finally kill him, but the losses were heavy. This species was supposed to have been completely eradicated by the first war zone 32 years ago, so the protagonist wonders why it is still appearing now. After that, Yi Fan tells his captain to go while he provides cover with his immortality. Han Zhan says that the black veil of the adult wanderer has absorbed the young wanderer that was just killed, and its range has expanded tenfold. At their current speed, they will be killed by the enemy before even reaching the edge of the black veil. So the protagonist wants Yi Fan to just buy enough time for him to heal. Seeing this, Han Yingwei becomes desperate and orders the wanderer to attack. Immediately it obeys, but Yi Fan shields his captain. He uses his shield to block the enemy's attack from hitting the protagonist. But right after, Han Yingwei appears and claims that Yi Fan's powers are not real and that he does not have an immortal body. Angrily, he says that whether it is real or not is none of her business, and he headbutts his former partner. Because of this, the insect controlling her is thrown off, and it moves toward him, attacking his arm. However, Yi Fan quickly defends himself and crushes the insect, preventing it from taking control of his brain. But the adult wanderer is still standing. Seeing what just happened, it decides to attack again, immediately firing a laser beam at the heroes. Yi Fan blocks it once more with his shield, then asks how much longer the protagonist will need. He replies that Se Yue and Yi Fan should handle the erosion worm, while he takes care of the adult wanderer. Han Zhan says that he did not expect to have to use his full strength, but now he sees that it will be necessary. The protagonist attacks the enemy, and completely destroys it due to the applied force. The insect becomes extremely irritated because of that, but is surprised to see someone so young with so much strength. Now it wants to see how many moves the protagonist can perform. Han Zhan defends the enemy's strike with his gloves, and basically shatters the energy directed at him. His opponent wonders where he got that pair of gloves. He claims that more than a decade ago, he killed a Zerg king on the battlefield, and those gloves belong to the strong, but he says the boy is far from that. Zhang says he may not be strong, but claims that this insect is also not the Zerg king. After that, he attacks it with the gloves. The insect says that having this pair of gloves makes it seem like the protagonist is a strong man and the gloves have a very special connection with him. In that case, if it kills him, the gloves will remain sad for a long time, which will move him emotionally. Zhang thinks he must kill the enemy before it absorbs all of the young ranger's energy. Otherwise, there will be no chance of defeating it. This is his only chance, and this is his only life. Is this the feeling between life and death, he wonders, considering it as something truly stressful. After opening the 8th seal, Zhang thinks he won't last long, and the only way to survive is to keep fighting until the end. So he rushes toward the opponent, willing to fight to the death. With that, he manages to land a punch on the insect's chest, causing it to split in half, and its pieces spread across the area after that. However, even though it was split into several pieces, the enemy remains alive, surprising the protagonist. It then gathers all its parts together, returning to its original form, claiming that, for the protagonist, the fight ends now. Fan appears next, saying that Bai Shuang has disappeared. But Zhang doesn't even have time to think about it, since the enemy returns and attacks him. It tells the protagonist that there is no way to escape. Then it says it will take them all to hell and hurls a flaming stone sphere at them. Yi Fan tries to hold off this attack using his abilities. While he is holding the stone thrown by the enemy, he tells the captain to run. Zhang knows that his ally won't be able to hold it for long, until suddenly someone appears out of nowhere, using an annihilation technique, the Sixth Fist, and destroys the stone with it, and also the giant insect. Upon seeing that unfold before their very eyes, both the protagonist and the rest of the group are left speechless. Right after that, they realize it was Master Lei Shutong, who says he showed up just in time to save them. The protagonist is impressed to witness his master's power, but because he was injured in the battle, he passes out next. His group is worried about him, until the master tells them to return with the protagonist, while he stays behind to clean up the mess. Yi-fan doesn't understand right away what Lai Shutong meant. Little does he know that the group's troubles are only beginning. Sometime later in a hospital, the protagonist wakes up screaming in a hospital bed. He is confused, but Xe Yue tells him that everything is fine and that they are in a hospital. Xe Yue explains that he passed out and that the master started eliminating the parasite worms, but since they could not locate the queen worm, they were unable to eradicate them completely, so he was taken to the hospital to recover. After hearing this, Hanjan asks how Yi-fan is doing. She responds that Yi-fan is in the ICU because he did everything he could to hold off the enemy. As a result, his bones and meridians were completely shattered. If not for his immortality talent, he probably would have already died. Though he is not dead, his injuries are severe, but he is slowly repairing the damage. After this explanation, a nurse appears and asks if they are Yi-fan's colleagues. The protagonist responds that they are. Then the nurse says that he has disappeared. Xe Yue says that the master ordered them to track the parasite worms on their own. Bei's departure is related to the parasite worms. He must have gone to find her and the worms. The protagonist says that Bei Shuang is a crucial link. 4th level parasites can reproduce asexually and divide, but if they can kill the Zerg Queen, they will be able to take down all the other worms simultaneously. Yi-fan must have discovered something and gone to investigate alone. There is one more thing. Xe Yue mentions that the organization deducted 100 points from their team. Because the master completed the mission in the end, all the other teams were considered to have failed, and their points were deducted accordingly. Hanjun asks if, while they were fighting on the front lines, the organization was playing these dirty tricks behind their backs. Xe Yue says not only that, but they also took the Wanderer's corpse without leaving anything behind. All the materials were taken back to the organization's headquarters. She also says that the master warned that this is a matter between them and the Guardians, and no one else would interfere, clearly implying that he is supporting them. Even though he is still injured, the protagonist says that he will take back what is rightfully theirs. Shortly after, he arrives at the organization with a forceful entrance, shouting in the middle of everyone for Zhao Hu to show himself. One of those present asks what the protagonist is doing. He responds that he wants to speak with Zhao Hu. This guy says that the protagonist seems a little too angry and should calm down, claiming that this is not the place to cause trouble. But when he tries to attack the protagonist, he gets swiftly countered and falls flat on his face. Sarcastically, the protagonist asks if anyone has ever told this guy that his smile really makes people want to punch him. The others are impressed to see the protagonist take down this arrogant man with just one hit. But the annoying man insists on fighting back and tries to attack the protagonist with a knife. However, once again, he is completely overpowered, being toyed with by Han Zhan, until Zhao Hu appears and tells him to stop. Then the protagonist says that he finally decided to show up. Zhao Hu asks what he wants, and Han Zhan demands that he apologize to him and his team. After that, Zhao Hu asks if he sent a video to headquarters. He responds that he did, including sending it to Vice Leader Su Mingxuan and the Supervision Department. Zhao Hu says that as soon as the higher-ups find out that the protagonist hit people, he will be severely punished, but the protagonist is not worried at all. Then, one of Zhao Hu's men says that headquarters stated this is an internal matter, and that the Guardians should resolve it on their own. Zhao Hu asks about the supervision department established by all the major war zones. His subordinate says that the supervisors commented that the young man who fought has impressive skills, and even invited him to join them. With that, Zhao Hu becomes furious and asks what kind of nonsense bureaucracy this is. Seeing no way out, he asks what kind of apology the protagonist wants. Han Zhan says that his team worked hard, but Zhao Hu was the one who kept the reward. Therefore, he wants access to the Guardian's vault to take whatever he wants as a prize. Zhao Hu says that only selected members can enter the vault, but the protagonist responds that for Zhao Hu, this should not be a problem and asks if he is really going to oppose it. Soon, Zhao Hu thinks about it and wonders, if only one person enters, how many items can he take until he is satisfied? Then he says that only the protagonist may enter, and that when he comes out, no item can be hidden anywhere except in his hands. Han Zhan likes this deal, and says that for him, it is settled. But he thinks that he will take more than his rival imagines. Sometime later, they go to the City Defense Organization's treasure vault. The subordinate asks if there is any chance something could go wrong. Zhao Hu responds that inside, there are many valuable treasures and some not so interesting ones. Soon, a newly graduated student will get lost in there, and even if he can fill both hands, he will not be able to carry much. His subordinate says that what the captain said makes sense. Inside, the protagonist picks up a treasure appraisal book and is dazzled by the number of items in the vault. Fortunately, he brought notes on everything stored there. Otherwise, he would not know what to look for. He sees the appendages of a 3rd-order skeleton ant Zerg, the bone wings of a 5th-order ghost butterfly Zerg, an eternal winter flower, half-sleep branch grass, and even the shell of a level 6 wall crab. The protagonist knows that by using the main material, he can craft a very strong set of defensive equipment. He says that all these things are valuable, and he wants to have them all because with the ring he received from his master, he can absorb all these items into the magical compartment. An hour passes and Zhao Hu asks why the protagonist has not come out yet, until Han Zhen finally appears and meets up with his friend. Shi Yui asks how it went. He says he will tell her when they get back, and now that he has what he wanted, it is time to go home. But since he is empty-handed, Zhao Hu and his men become suspicious, thinking that the protagonist did not take anything. So he decides to call the administrator, who reveals that the protagonist took many items. Zhao Hu says that even if he took a lot, he promises that everything he collected will be returned sooner or later, with interest. However, the administrator states that he took 50% of everything inside the vault, something Zhao Hu never imagined. He says that the treasure was the entire property of the city defense organization, and that if the protagonist had taken just 1 or 2 items, it would have been easy to cover up. But he emptied half of the treasury all at once and wonders if the organization will really let this slide. Then he tells his subordinate to report everything to headquarters, but his subordinate says he has already done so and that headquarters has already responded. Zhao Hu asks what their response was. He says it was good measurement. Later that same day, the protagonist is already at home, and says that with this lesson, he wants to see if Zhao Hu will dare to act arrogantly with him again. Suddenly, Shi Yui appears, saying that it is already late and invites him to sleep with her. Shi Yui says that ever since he got injured last time, she has been afraid of losing him. Now she does not want to let him go, no matter what happens. Out of nowhere, a girl appears, and she asks who is making so much noise at this hour of the night. The two become extremely embarrassed, because they didn't know there was someone else in the house. The protagonist asks the girl who she is. She replies that she is the granddaughter of the house owner. Her name is Lai Lingjin, and she says she has already heard about the protagonist. Han Zhen analyzes her and sees that she is a transcendent level contracted spirit. Her real name is Shenong Ding, and she is one of the 10 ancient divine weapons. The girl says that this is her most comfortable state at home. Maintaining this form helps her find inspiration and creation. She also says that she is a best-selling online author. By the way, she apologizes for disturbing them and asks Sei Yue if she is going to continue what she was doing, because if not, she will. Sei Yue tells the girl that she just met them and can't be impertinent without any emotional foundation. But Lai Lingzhen says she doesn't need that to form a contract. This leaves Sei Yue embarrassed because she thought the girl was talking about something else. The protagonist says that Sei Yue's talent and rank truly possess divinity, and that if they form a contract, she will be able to use divine enlightenment to help him awaken a second time. This excites Sei Yue, and she immediately wants to perform the contract. Seeing that the girl is super excited, the protagonist asks what making a contract has to do with taking off clothes. She says that she is a writer, and in her books, contracts are made after intimate contact. Han Zhen realizes he is dealing with an unusual situation. Even so, he continues with the contracting process. He then uses the divine light ability to activate the ancient divine weapon, Shenong Ding. The girl says it is so hot that she feels a flaming current entering her body. Shortly after, the protagonist, through his system, manages to see all the attributes of the contract. He realizes that it is possible to refine essence and return to the true form. With this talent, he can actually extract spiritual energy, and it also means that he will be able to freely obtain pure spiritual energy and advance over time. Han Zhen says that her talent is really great and suggests testing it immediately. Shi Yue tells them to continue while she goes to get a glass of water. She thinks that this girl is also a divine level spirit, claiming that this is surprising. While in the kitchen getting water, she hears their conversation in the next room, finding the direction it is taking quite strange. However, when she returns, she realizes that nothing unusual was happening, and she feels embarrassed because she sees that they were just refining materials, placing them inside the forge. After that, the protagonist praises the girl's efficiency and says that he made spiritual energy pills, which after consumption can increase spiritual energy by at least 1%. After returning to her human form, Lai Lingzhen says that the alchemy fire in her body has not yet been extinguished, so she tells the protagonist to hurry up, because she wants his help to put out the fire, but he is not in the mood to do that, and even asks his friend for help. Then Sei Yue tries to push the girl away, but she fails. More and more, Lai Lingzhen feels comfortable and doesn't want to stop what she is doing. The protagonist tries to stay strong, and even his friend tells him to hold on. Meanwhile, Lai Lingzhen takes full advantage of the situation. They spend the whole night in this activity, until the next day, the protagonist finds himself exhausted because he had to respond to the call of two girls at the same time. Lai Lingjin says she didn't expect him to be so powerful and claims to have enjoyed it a lot. Even Si Yue praises him, saying that these exchanges have made his power much purer. Han Zhan stands up and says he has other tasks to accomplish. He tells Lai Lingjin that he is going to investigate the erosion handworm and search for his squad's missing members. Lai Lingjin asks who is missing, and Si Yue shows her a photo of Han Yingwei. From the photo, Lai Lingjin recognizes her and asks if this person frequents the night dance, claiming that she often goes to the city's largest dance hall and sees someone similar there. The protagonist didn't expect to find a clue so quickly and praises her for her efficiency. Then he sprays something on the girls and says they are going to that dance club. Han Zhan says that this spray is to repel the erosion worms since they are very sensitive to the scent of stereotated tree flowers. He also says that after smelling the flowers, their emotions become extremely irritable, even insane. After preparing themselves, they head to the club. As soon as they arrive, the protagonist asks if there is a woman named Red Aristale there. By the bartender's reaction, he knows who she is. The moment the protagonist says that name, everyone present looks at him, and the bartender reveals that this means this gentleman will be paying for everyone's drinks. Immediately, the whole place celebrates the news. The bartender says that someone came earlier and said that whoever asked about Bai Shuang should be considered responsible for covering all the drink expenses in the venue. Han Zhan realizes he has fallen into a trap, but he still wants to continue the search. The bartender presents something that the mysterious man left behind. He asked for it to be handed to the protagonist personally, and even though he wanted to see what was inside, he couldn't open it beforehand. So the protagonist opens the box and sees that there is a note inside. The protagonist reads the note, and Lai Lingjin asks what message is written in it. Han Zhan says that the reproduction cycle started in February, which means that there are now 7 parasites in total. Then they tell the girls to wait because they are going to the restroom. As soon as he arrives at the location, he tells a man inside to leave because he needs to be alone in there. But while the protagonist is handling his business, the man smells a stench that bothers him and says he hates that smell before attacking. Han Zhan waits for the enemy to approach and takes him down with just one blow. With that, the insect controlling the man abandons his body. The protagonist quickly grabs the insect, identifying it as a Zerg Eclipse, and then crushes it. The girls appear, asking what happened, and the protagonist summarizes the events. Shi Yui says there are 7. Now that one has shown up, she wonders where the others are, and also whether Yi Ming's teammates are at high risk of being parasitized. Han Zhan suggests leaving to gather more clues, until another man appears and attacks him, but the protagonist dodges effortlessly, and once again with a single strike he takes him down. The insect that was controlling his body flies out, and the protagonist manages to kill it before it escapes. Lai Lingjin asks if it was another Zerg Eclipse, but before they could respond, Si Yui says she has seen this man before, claiming that he is one of Zhao Hu's subordinates. The protagonist realizes she is right, and says that all these people have one common link, Zhao Hu. With this, he deduces where Yi Fan might have gone. Speaking of Zhao Hu, he is quite comfortable in his quarters, enjoying the company of a beautiful woman, until Yi Fan arrives, kicking down his door, claiming he has business with him. He also says that Zhao Hu killed Yi Ming and usurped his position as captain, in addition to using a Zerg Eclipse to corrupt talented awakened and contracted spirits. With this, Yi Fan declares that he will make Zhao Hu pay for his crimes. Zhao Hu tells Yi Fan that his woman is dead, so he should just hide and lick his wounds instead of coming here to make a scene. Hearing this only makes Yi Fan angrier, and he declares that today he will settle all scores. Zhao Hu claims he is not to blame, saying that if Yi Fan wants to blame someone, he should blame himself for not standing firm in his position and for his lack of luck. He also says that Yi Fan is just standing there talking nonsense and should be more worried about the reinforcements on their way. As soon as the men arrive, Zhao Hu tells them to retaliate, claiming that Yi Fan is a criminal who attacked a member of the Guardians. After that, the men obey his order and charge forward. Yi Fan prepares to fight and quickly activates his powers. Shortly after, the protagonist arrives accompanied by the girls and helps his teammate in battle. This surprises Zhao Hu greatly. Even Yi Fan is taken aback, but the protagonist says he is only there to assist, and asks if Yi Fan really thought it was a good idea to attack the leader of the guards alone. Either way, the protagonist warns the others that this matter is between him and Zhao Hu, so they should not interfere. However, they don't care about that and rush into battle. Han Zhan kind of already expected this to happen, so he doesn't just stand there and fights back. After taking down all the henchmen, he leaves them lying on the ground. Yi Fan is impressed by how quickly the protagonist defeated them all, but meanwhile, Zhao Hu takes the opportunity to flee. However, Han Zhan is not going to let him off so easily, and stops him from running any further. Without a word, Han Zhan strikes his opponent with such force that Zhao Hu falls to the ground dead, and from his body emerges a Zerg Eclipse, which immediately tries to escape, but the protagonist doesn't let that happen, and defeats it but realizes that this is not the Mother Zerg. After that, more henchmen appear and say that the protagonist won't leave that place so easily. Han-Jan then realizes he has fallen into a trap. A flashback shows what happened half an hour ago. The mayor's secretary had gone to deliver a document for him to sign, but when she found him, she realized he was under the control of a Zerg Eclipse. She was so frightened that she let out a loud scream, a scream that could be heard from far away. Back in the present, the protagonist has a bad feeling. He then tells his group to leave quickly and find the master. Meanwhile, he will help resolve this crisis. His friend tries to convince him not to do this, but he says there's no time for discussion. At the same time, the mayor has just given the order to arrest the protagonist on suspicion of murdering the captain of the defense squad, Zhao Hu. The mayor thinks that he didn't expect the bait to be taken so quickly, but he believes the fish is hooked. Han-Jan leaves the location, thinking that the best thing to do is to separate from the others so he doesn't involve them as well. But as soon as he steps outside, a senior member says that he killed a member of the organization and must surrender. Due to the protagonist's hesitation, he is forced to kneel. Far from there, a meeting is taking place. Master Lei Shutong meets with a friend and asks why he is hiding. His friend asks why he doesn't seem worried. Lei Shutong replies that there's no reason to worry. The friend says that the descendant the master chose has already been arrested, and the evidence is conclusive. Because of this, he will be publicly executed. Lei Shutong asks if he really needs to be so hostile to a friend. The friend says that even if he kills this quantum avatar of his, it won't change anything. He also says that Lao Shang gave each of them an avatar like this, but it seems that Lei Shutong has forgotten. Lei Shutong says that he doesn't care either because more surprises are coming, until Lin Jingxuan appears and asks if the master wants him to rescue Han-Jan. The master says that he has let problems linger in the organization for too long and hasn't been able to find the mastermind behind everything. And if they think they can use Zhao Hu to lure his disciple and that his master will do nothing about it, they are very mistaken. Speaking of Han-Jan, he is in prison, completely tied up. The man who arrested him wants to force a confession, but Han-Jan claims he has committed no crime. Then, due to his refusal, the man tortures him with punches and says that Han-Jan has only two choices. The first is to join them. He also says that Han-Jan doesn't need to know who they are, only that they represent the future. However, the second option is to continue like this, and by the next day, he will be publicly executed. With this, Han-Jan accuses the man of being responsible for allowing the Zerg discovered by Yi Ming to return to the city. The man says that Han-Jan can see it that way if he wants, but for them, the Zergs are not enemies, and as long as they are used correctly, they become extraordinary tools. With that, the protagonist says he has already made his decision, and chooses the third option, which is to send this man to hell. Furious, the man says that Han-Jan is courting death. The next day, all the news outlets announce the public execution of Han-Jan. A subordinate of the mayor says that everything is ready for execution. The mayor asks if they captured the 3 people who escaped yesterday. The subordinate replies that they did not because there were too many, and it is likely that they are hiding in a village. Then the mayor simply tells him to keep investigating and that he must leave now. In his mind, the mayor wonders why the protagonist is so calm even in the face of death. Speaking of the protagonist, he thinks that his master taught him to let things go and that he would take care of everything. So he wonders what his master is planning. The crowd keeps growing, and they soon realize that the protagonist is the same young man who recently awakened to SS rank, and they don't understand why he is in this position. Until the mayor steps forward, leaving everyone shocked because he appeared in person. The mayor starts spreading lies about the protagonist precisely to justify his execution. Due to his position and power, he convinces many in the crowd. Thus, he already counts this as his victory, and orders the execution of the protagonist. The executioner activates the guillotine mechanism, and with great speed, the blade descends. Someone activates a type of remote control, which prevents the blade from reaching the protagonist's neck. Immediately, the executioner becomes confused, thinking the machine malfunctioned. The mayor becomes furious, saying that whoever is responsible for this will be held accountable, until a woman speaks up, claiming that Han-Jan is her benefactor and that she does not agree with his execution. Upon seeing her, the mayor identifies her as the merchant Sting and asks if she is involved in this. After her, others step forward in support of the protagonist, his team members. Back with the master, his friend says that the disciple has been sent to the guillotine, marking his defeat. But Lei Shutong says the game isn't over yet, and that it's too soon to draw conclusions. His friend tells him to wait and see, then leaves. On Lei Shutong's communicator, someone reports that his friend left too quickly, and they couldn't track him precisely. The master asks Shang if he knows anything, but Shang denies it, saying that if he did, he wouldn't be helping with his student. Moreover, he says that the organization behind this has found a source of reports, and it is called Dawn. At the protagonist's core, people around him wonder how anyone dares to defy a penal colony. And if merchants have intervened, it's no simple matter. Sting says that people have been blinded by the mayor and claims that Han Jan is not a prisoner, but a true servant of the people. Then she points to a giant screen, where footage of the protagonist's achievements is displayed, from his academy evaluations to his actions and missions. This makes the protagonist appear quite patriotic, and Sting asks if the man who wholeheartedly helps the city is really a traitor. But before she can continue, the man who previously captured Han Jan appears and orders everyone to be silent. Fan seems to recognize this man. Meanwhile, the executioner states that guillotining Han Jan is his mission and that no one can interfere. And since the guillotine didn't work, he uses his powers and summons a giant flaming hand, attempting to strike the protagonist next. However, he senses that something is wrong, and moments later is caught off guard, getting hit directly, without even seeing where it came from. Even the people around wonder what just happened. Sting, however, notices something nearby, and catches a glimpse of Master Li Shutang. The mayor, already furious, tells Han Jan that no one will save him and personally charges at him. The protagonist in turn stands up, realizing that his master is working in his favor. Even so, the mayor does not give up on attacking him, so Han Jan simply dodges his strikes, irritating the mayor even more. However, the protagonist doesn't just evade, he also counterattacks. Soon, he lands a precise strike on his opponent, hurling him to the ground with such force that he is knocked out from the impact, and from the mayor's head emerges a mind-controlling Zerg. The protagonist doesn't let the insect escape, and just like the others, he crushes it. The people around are caught off guard, as they didn't expect to see this. Han Zan states that the mayor was harboring a parasitic Zerg, which confuses and distorts the truth, and says that even if they don't believe him, his only goal is to protect the city. This shifts public opinion in favor of the protagonist, as they realize something was indeed suspicious about the whole situation. Shortly after, Lei Shutang appears and asks his student how it felt to have a near-death experience. Han Jan says it was gratifying to let his master clean up the mess, but that if there's a next time, he'd rather be the one giving orders. The master says that his student did well, and now that the mother Zerg is dead and the others have been found, it proves that the protagonist did an excellent job. Lai Shutang says it's unfortunate that he was too persistent before and couldn't find any leads about Dawn. The protagonist asks what that is. He explains that it is a mysterious organization that has infiltrated the city's protectors and that they have yet to uncover any significant information. Han Jan didn't know that an organization had infiltrated them until this team arrives, saying they found Bai Shuang's body. Though saddened, the protagonist asks where. Fan states that a total of 1,100 people died in this incident. Her body and the others are frozen together, ready for a sea burial. At the funeral, the master and the entire group pay their respects. With this, the protagonist laments not being able to protect Bai Shuang. Speaking of her, her body begins to react strangely, until the color of her skin changes in appearance, and from within her, some kind of evil aura emerges. Some time has passed, and it is now autumn. During a meeting, the master asks the protagonist if he and his group intend to reach level 3 after the corrosive worm incident. He responds that they do and mentions that Ling Zhen has also reached level 3, matching the rest of the group. Not only her, but Xie Yue has also progressed significantly. The merchant girl is also present and suggests that the protagonist contract her, but he says he only contracts spirits with divinity that can help him. She says that's fine and hopes to awaken divine power someday. The master says that after level 3, there is nothing in the rear cities worth training for, and asks if Han Jan has any plans. He replies that he wants to become stronger, relying on himself to carve a path through this insect apocalypse. In that case, the master says he will contact Wai Qin, and a plane will take him to the front lines for training. But he warns that he must go alone because spirits cultivate differently from contracted ones, and the master has better plans for them. Even knowing that the first war zone is engaged in the last large-scale battle against the Zergs before the new year, the protagonist agrees to go there for training. In the Great Exia, on the frontline battlefield, the war against the enemies is intense. Humans are using heavy weaponry to try and combat them. Countless wounded are being transported. There, Zhang asks why Xiaoyi has returned. He responds that his allied captain lost 3 people, and he received them and came back, so Zhang shouldn't question it. But Zhang says that's nonsense because a standard captain only has 5 people, and since he lost 3, he asks if he couldn't wait for reinforcements. He also says that if only 2 people are missing and the captain is still waiting for reinforcements, he should be ashamed. However, Xiaoya says he is not like them and came here with a mission, an elite mission. Amid their argument, a helicopter appears, and from inside it, the protagonist steps out. He introduces himself as Han John, claiming to be the new recruit. Xiaoya asks the protagonist where his spirit is. He replies that it stayed at home, but Xiaoya says this is a war zone and that he is not here to die, so he shouldn't joke like that. Zhang says that judging by the protagonist's clothing, he is not from the camp, meaning he must be a young master from the city. This only irritates Xiaoya, who claims that these young masters only bring trouble, so he suggests that Zhang take this young master into his team. But Zhang tells Xiaoya that it's his turn to receive recruits, so he can't go back on his word. So Xiaoya gives in and tells the protagonist to follow him so he can introduce him to the other teammates. Xiaoya formally introduces himself and says that, according to regulations, the protagonist will be incorporated into his team. Then he introduces the teammates, Kai Shifang and Xaix Sedoxian. The girl seems delighted and immediately takes advantage of having a newcomer in the group, asking him to help her take off her coat. The protagonist agrees to help without hesitation. She thanks him for his help, and he says it was nothing. Then the girl asks why the protagonist is alone, saying she thinks he could have at least brought his contracted spirit with him. Instead, the protagonist says he brought some gifts for everyone in the group, and from his magic ring, takes out some treasures he had previously collected, such as high-level armor. The two are thrilled with this and conclude that the protagonist is a great addition to the team, except for the captain, who claims he doesn't need armor. Xiaoya sees that the protagonist is a young master who not only has a storage ring, but also 6th level armor, generously distributing it. Then, the captain says he will go pick up the mission supplies and tells the group to go ahead. Meanwhile, one of them reveals that the captain is a mecha pilot who lost his spirit in battle, but found an opportunity for a career in war. The girl says that what he despises most are those incompetent figures, but she quickly realizes she said too much. The captain tells them to stop chatting and get ready for the mission. Han Jan asks what their mission is. The captain says it is called Blue Mission, Extinction. He also says the protagonist must have heard about the Izoi Snake Clan. The reproduction rate of this clan is extremely fast, with their battlefield reinforcement speed being 10,000 times greater than that of humans. Although they have already increased the casualty rate, it is still not enough to compensate for the explosive reinforcements of the Snake Clan. This is also why, for over a month, the First War Zone and the Snake Clan elites have been at a stalemate on the front lines. However, more than a month ago, the remorseful return requested by White King, the chief of the First War Zone, broke this balance. Commander Wei led the assault. His fist, splitting the ages, directly shattered the reinforcement and empowerment lines of the Snake Clan, raising the casualty ratio to a staggering 100,000 to 1. White King's sudden attack caught the enemy clan off guard, but soon 4 8th-level Serpent Emperors surrounded him. Both sides fought fiercely. The latest mission directive was issued by the Second War Zone. Through divination, they used contracted spirits to precisely locate the positions of these snake nest pockets. The fastest and closest teams in each area are responsible for destroying the snake nests. After walking for some time toward the target, the protagonist spots a sign of the enemy, but he doesn't know exactly what it is. Xiaoya explains that it is a snake skin. Every time one undergoes a rank promotion, it sheds its skin. Hanjan says this is not good at all, because these cunning snakes keep their eggs inside it. The captain states that the skin is over 6,000 meters long, containing millions of eggs. This must be the mission's target, precisely the snake nest. However, upon hearing some eggs hatching, the group becomes alarmed. Several hatchlings are about to be born. Not only that, but the sound of the eggs breaking is agonizing. The sonic blast strikes the captain, who, even inside his mecha, is sent flying. But the protagonist doesn't leave him in distress and rushes toward him to rescue him. However, this doesn't stop the rest of the group from worrying. Xiaoya tells the protagonist to go complete the mission and that he doesn't need to be saved. But Hanjan won't let him fall. He grabs the mecha, despite its immense weight, and hurls it to the top of the cliff. The captain returns from where he had fallen and is astonished by the protagonist's strength. The others are concerned as only the captain returned. Xiaoya wonders how Hanjan possesses such strength. One of the team members says the fall is very high, making it impossible for the protagonist to have survived. Xiaoya somewhat agrees with this and blames himself for not being the one who died instead. However, moments later, Hanjan returns, saying that he's not dead yet but could use a little help getting back up. His teammates are overjoyed to see him, saying that he scared them with all this. Xiaoya scolds him, saying that he must not sacrifice himself and emphasizing that the main objective is to complete the mission, no matter what. Now that everything is clear, they continue. However, the protagonist notices that several hatchlings have been born and are scattered all over the path. Not only that, but they are about to attack. The captain alerts everyone of the danger, but this only makes the group even more anxious. The snakes charge forward, full of killing intent. Xiaoya takes the lead, saying he will buy time for his team to act. The girl points out that there are too many snakes and that the captain won't be able to escape. So Hanjan decides to take action. He uses the power of his ring, which emits a force field around him. The snakes seem to react to it. The captain notices this as they stop attacking and remain almost completely paralyzed. Xiaoya doesn't understand how this is possible, but the protagonist tells him not to stand there and to burn them as quickly as possible. Without wasting any more time, he does exactly that, unleashing flames upon them all. The fire spreads on a massive scale, visible from a great distance. With the situation now under control, the protagonist explains that he used one of his devices to intimidate the snakes, which is why they were paralyzed. Then, the captain says he has eliminated them all, but still wants to understand the protagonist's abilities. The snakes in the end were completely charred, and Han Zhan simply states that he is just a level 3 spiritual contract master. Xiaoya doesn't believe this, but he soon realizes there's no time for conversation, as an alarm suddenly appears on his onboard computer. He announces that the mission is not over yet, and that they have a new target. The Snake Clan has sent reinforcements, and if these snakes reach their objective, they will be in serious trouble. Therefore, they must stop them before that happens. Xiaoya has already seen that the protagonist is strong and has the ability to contain the snakes, so he asks what he thinks should be done. Han Zhan says he is not sure if they can eliminate them all, but if they don't run now, they will definitely be defeated. Not far from there, the 5th-ranked Izanagi snake is guarding an important point and preparing to act. Soon, the group spots the snake in the distance. The protagonist tells them not to stand still, as they must retreat. They follow his lead, as they have no other choice. Xiaoya tells them to go ahead while he stays behind to delay the enemy. As the group runs, he remains behind, fighting the giant serpent. However, the protagonist doesn't like this, because he sees that his captain is literally in the snake's mouth. Then it crushes his mecha, and Xiaoya is barely saved from being devoured. He falls from the mecha, plummeting toward the ground. The group is worried about him, but they soon become the snake's next target. However, a magical shield protects them. For a brief moment, they don't understand what happened, but then they realize it is due to the armor the protagonist gifted them earlier. The snake then attacks with venom, which dissolves the magical shield. Not only that, but it hits the two, who practically melt away. Han Zhan watches this happen right before his eyes and is shocked, but he has no time to grieve, as the serpent now has him as its next target. What it didn't expect was for the protagonist to become furious, as seeing his companions die like that made him unleash his full power. Han Zhan dodges its attack, and then immediately prepares his magic harp. Through it, he summons a protective wind barrier. The serpent, however, still has tricks up its sleeve, and this time it launches a projectile, which, upon hitting the protagonist's wind barrier, destabilizes him, causing him to fall. The impact of his fall is immense, and he admits that he underestimated his enemy's strength. Without giving him a chance to recover, the serpent attacks again, but from above, it is suddenly struck. A sword lands right on the snake's head, incapacitating it. Han Zhan doesn't see where it came from, and is surprised by the attack. Then, a woman approaches and reveals herself as the one responsible. The protagonist thanks her, since a lady just saved him. Her name is Gonyang Jin, an experienced warrior. She says that the protagonist is handsome and just her type, but she doesn't want to be called senior. She says she is from the city of extreme evil, the Exile Island, which he must have heard of. The protagonist knows that the place got its name because its inhabitants are not accepted in any country, forming a large concentration of exiles. Their evil lies in acting according to their whims, without caring for others' lives, achieving what they want by any means necessary. Han Zhan analyzes Gonyang Jin and realizes that she is an 8th-rank Valkyrie. She approaches and asks more about the protagonist's powers. Gonyang Jin says that through the sound he made, she could feel every cell in her body amplify, almost as if she could punch the Emperor Snake and kill it in a single blow. That's why she wants to take the protagonist as her exclusive combat support. However, Han Zhan asks for a moment. Gonyang Jin asks if he, a mere rank 3, intends to resist. The protagonist says that his mission is not yet over, so he cannot leave, but Gonyang Jin suggests taking him by force. However, he states that if that's the case, he would rather die. Gonyang Jin expected something like this from him and asks what he wants in return for willingly going with her. Han Zhan thinks it's best to take advantage of this situation and maybe use her to complete his mission. So he says he agrees to go as long as she works with him to defeat the Zerg Izanagi on the battlefield. With that, Gonyang Jin says she imagined he would ask for something else, but if that's all, they have a deal. The protagonist shows that he has a map and says that it marks 3 locations of the snakes, pointing out where they should act. Cooperating with Daxia's forces is his final decision. Gonyang Jin says she has no problem with that, but in a moment of distraction, she feels something strange coming from her back. She says that the nightmare in her wound is starting to flare up. The protagonist asks what is happening, and she simply tells him to run. Gonyang Jin starts behaving as if she has lost control of her actions. Soon, the protagonist notices a demonic aura surrounding her, He then uses his magic harp to try to restrain her. Its magical properties begin to take effect, dispersing the demonic aura from Ganyang Jin, until, in an instant, she becomes purified. Then she asks how the protagonist did that. He replies that he used Kinkson powder, which has recovery and suppression properties. But he asks how she ended up in that state. Ganyang Jin says she was wounded by a 9th Order Emperor insect. Although she managed to escape alive, she was left with hidden injuries in her body. The 9th Order Emperor insect is called Nightmare. The aura it leaves behind can take control of her body and put her in a death-like state. Hanjan asks if he can see the wound, and Ganyang Jin calls him bold for trying to take advantage of the situation, and she says that after this she will gouge his eyes out. The protagonist simply states that the wound has not healed yet, but it can be treated. Ganyang Jin realizes that Hanjan actually touched her directly. Not only that, but the protagonist does even more. He uses his powers to heal her. Ganyang Jin feels some discomfort, but it's due to the wound being healed. The protagonist says that Kinkson powder has a suppressive effect but cannot completely dispel the curse. After that, Ganyang Jin says that he is truly impressive and asks if he currently has 2 contracted spirits. Hanjan simply continues the procedure and performs the magic of the creation of living beings. This now makes Ganyang Jin feel extremely comfortable. Then the protagonist says he is done and that her wound is now completely healed. She asks if he can do it again because she really enjoyed the sensation. Hanjan tells her that she just saw him use his talent to devour the flesh and blood of billions of Zergs to obtain psychic power. And if she wants him to use it again now, she will need to provide a lot more flesh and blood. So she asks if an Izanagi snake is enough. Then the two set off toward their objective, which fortunately does not seem too far away. A drone flies over enemy territory, and the operator reports that a large number of snakes are on the move. The district leaders in the control room do not like hearing this and start considering how to respond. Lin Jingxuan says they are moving fast, therefore fighters strong enough must be sent to face them on the front lines. Then he orders them to contact the 8th Combat Force, as they are the most suitable for this mission. Back with the protagonist, he thanks Ganyang Jin for her help. She says it's fine and is already eager to get into action. But Hanjan says he will go first, and charges toward the enemies. Ganyang Jin thinks the protagonist is quite the adventurer, but with her around, he will do just fine. Hanzan, in turn, engages in hand-to-hand combat with the serpents, and shows no fear of danger. His battle is monitored by the control center through the drone feed. This makes them question why Hanjan is acting alone. Speaking of the protagonist, he originally wanted to train the 8th Fist of Urgency, but with so many snakes, he cannot kill them all, until a moment comes when he is completely surrounded and finds himself with no escape route. Then Ganyang Jin realizes it is time to act. Like a thunderbolt, she makes her entrance, arriving triumphantly on the battlefield. Her fighting spirit is ignited, and with just one swing of her sword, she slashes through multiple serpents. The protagonist thanks her for the help but says he can still fight. This makes Ganyang Jin think he is truly reckless. Hanjan opens the 3rd gate of power, becoming even stronger, and now wants to unleash all that energy in battle. As he attacks the serpents, a massive surge of energy is released, even surprising a warrior like Ganyang Jin. She refuses to be left behind. In the control center, they wonder who this woman is, the one helping Hanjan. Lin Jingxuan knows she is from the exiled city, an 8th level warrior, and explains in detail the information he has on her. Shortly after, the battlefield becomes much quieter, as Ganyang Jin and Hanjan have completely cleared it. The protagonist says that with so many snake corpses, he can absorb them and use the vitality of creation again. So he does, invoking his magic, and tells the woman to prepare because he will perform the treatment again. Ganyang Jin still feels the malignant aura within her, but the protagonist plans to put an end to it soon. He healed the wound, but he has not yet expelled the evil that remained inside her. Thus, he intends to find a way to do so. Ganyang Jin tells him to just remove the aura, without worrying about any consequences. Now that he has her approval, the protagonist decides to take action.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.